Welcome to the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, where we simplify the complexities of your leadership journey. Just a quick reminder, everybody, that we are focusing on building sustainable influence. So if you haven't yet, be sure to follow the show and sign up for that newsletter to stay in the loop. I'm Scott, and as always, we're here with our go-to leadership expert, Dr. Michael David Morales, a.k.a. Mo.
What's up, Scotty? Good to be here, man. I can't wait to hear your story. Let's do it.
So let me take you back to a quiet office in Ventura, California, which is home to Patagonia. So the outdoor company that's known for its high quality jackets, but for something, or I should say, not just for its high quality jackets, but for something rare in a business. And that's a conscious. One morning, a group of employees actually approached the company's founder, and they had been researching the impact of cotton farming, and what they found was actually absolutely alarming. Pesticides, water waste, environmental damage, the very fabric that Patagonia was using in its best-selling clothes was hurting the planet. Now, this wasn't a complaint. It was a challenge and a question of what if we switched everything to organic cotton? Now, most leaders would have said no, right? It's too expensive. It's too risky. You're already doing stuff well. Why would we change things? Customers aren't ultimately going to care. But the founder didn't flinch. Instead, he said, let's do it. And that decision really just sparked a wave of innovation within Patagonia. So recycled materials, repair programs, even a bold marketing campaign that urged people not to buy more. If you didn't know, Patagonia will fix anything that you have of theirs, as long as it's got the Patagonia brand, whether you got it at a thrift store, whether you bought it used, whether you found it outside, they will fix it because they would rather fix something than have you buy a new product because it's better for the environment. And ultimately, it came down to that when employees are trusted, when purpose drives decisions, creativity doesn't just survive, it actually thrives. And today's episode is really all about that. So how great leaders influence and nurture innovation, not with control, but with curiosity, courage, and a space to explore. So Mo, what's the first thing leadership needs to understand if they want to cultivate innovation within their own teams?
Yeah, that's a great opening story. And I remember you told me a specific story about a Black Friday in the early 2010s that they said, do not buy this jacket.
Mm-hmm.
And so what did everybody do? They ended up selling more of the jackets, but I really don't think that it was a marketing tool, even though it could have been. But they really were saying, hey, you probably don't need this, but if you don't have one or a jacket, this would be a good one.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody did it. But I think that's also because they really build trust with their community. They have the Earth tax where they give back tens of millions, over, I think over $100 million now, if I remember correctly, in fighting climate change and all these other kind of things. So kudos to Patagonia for, just really getting that buy-in. The same kind of thing with, I remember when I was reading Start With Why, and when one of the stories told was, you never see somebody, well, rarely anyway, I haven't, you never see somebody driving around with the Google logo on the back of their car. But how many times have you seen a car with the little Apple sticker on the back? Because it's about a brand, it's about buy-in, and Patagonia is great at that. So wonderful. And really, that's what we're talking about. Nurturing innovation, creativity. And the first point today is this: trust creates room for innovation. And that's what Patagonia did. They create trust with not just their clients, but also the people that work for them. And the people that work for Patagonia, buy Patagonia, they're bought in. They're all in. And so for leaders out there, the question is, are you giving your team something to buy into? It reminds me of when I was a youth pastor. We had a midweek program, and I'm telling you, it just ballooned into like hundreds of kids. And it was chaos. The check-ins were insane, getting new kids into the right groups, keeping the program on track. It was controlled chaos. And at some point I realized, look, I don't need to have control of everything. I just need to nurture innovation and creativity and let my leaders, who are the small group leaders for the kids, do what they do best, which is taking care of the kids. And so when I gave leaders that autonomy, we gave them outlines, of course. We gave them guidance, but they were the ones that were building trust week after week. It ended up that people weren't coming to youth group to see Mo, who spoke every week. I was just kind of an aside. The kids looked forward to being in the groups, and that small group time at the end, which was always, it started out being 30 minutes, and then we give them 45 minutes, and then we ended up giving them about an hour, because these group leaders were the ones who built trust. They were the ones who were given the room to create and innovate and do what's best for their kids because they're the ones that spent not just that midweek program, but on the weekends for church on Sunday or, hanging out
Hmm.
with them at the mall back in the
Yeah.
old days. But they were the ones that were putting into these kids.
I think buy-in is such a crucial thing. We do talk about a decent amount on the podcast here, but it just makes me think. Getting back into the swing of things. Right, it's fall. I was recently at a meeting, at a department meeting, and there's just so many new faces. And an individual who I'd worked with for a long time. He's been there a long time. He said hi to me, and he's like, "Hey, how long have you been here now?" And I was like, "Wow, this is the start of my 10th year or whatever." And he goes, "Wow, you're probably one of the oldest ones in the department now who's been here the longest." And that just hit me, and it was like, "Wow, okay, I've been here a while. So what makes me have bought into this?" And thinking about that for all these young people that we've hired, or new people, I should say, that have come onto the team. How do we get them to buy in so that they can make it to the 10-year mark and beyond? And it's just something that we talk about so many times here.
Yeah, that reminds me, when you become one of the stalwarts of a program, and Scotty, I would say that again, you are probably one of the old guard now. You've been there a while. And when people come, they are new. And there's some statistics out there, and specifically Andy Stanley has said for the first 3 months, you're the new guy, you're the new girl. But after that, you're part of the program. And so you're only new for so long. But as somebody like you who has been somewhere for as long as you have the experience. I know you have the wisdom. And let me stop right there. Experience doesn't always equal wisdom. Just because
Hmm.
you are somewhere for a long time or you do something for a long time doesn't mean you're good at it. Now, I know that Scotty's good at what he does because we've been spending some time together for almost a decade now. I can't believe that, Scott. You and I connected almost a decade ago. And I just remember having those conversations, and you had just gotten to that institution, and we would talk about it. And you would grow every year, and we would talk through the highs and lows that you had. And so, leaders, who are the people on your team who have been there the longest, and they are doing the proactive and the positive things? And who are the people who are just getting there? I remember when I first get to a place, I always tell when people ask me, "Hey, how do you like it here?" One of the first things I always say is, "Well, I know where the bathroom is now." Because isn't it so true? When you're the new guy, when you're the new girl, you don't even know where the bathroom is. You have to ask where the water cooler is, or hey, where do people hang out for coffee, or how do you take a break, or when do you do this? And so, Scott, I'm really glad for you going into your 10th year here at this institution, knowing that you have had a positive impact on your colleagues, and in this case, the student athletes as an athletic trainer. And I'm excited for this part of this season of your life.
Well, thank you for that. I do appreciate it. So, when we're talking though about motivation, and we're thinking about the idea of buy-in, and we're thinking about, okay, how do we get others to buy in? How do we get that longevity? Where does innovation really come into play with that?
Yeah, that's a great question, which brings me really to my second point, which is how do we get people to buy in? You have to celebrate. So many people do not celebrate. And I am one of the ones who is definitely guilty of this. I'm all about the next thing. Once I have a goal, I get that goal, great, check it off the list, go. And I'm telling you, leaders, that's not the best way to do things. And it's taken every fiber of my being to say, Mo, you got to stop, you got to celebrate. And I'm going to take it one step further, Scotty. You need to celebrate the tries, not just the wins. That's the second point. So many of us celebrate, hey, this went great. Congratulations, we hit this financial mark, or we got to this many people for whatever we're trying to do, or we checked this off the list. But we need to celebrate the tries. There is a lot more failure in success than we give credit to. Innovation requires risk, and risk means not every idea is going to succeed. I know that for a fact as a coach for young people. I have tried things before and thought, this is a fantastic idea, and then it just imploded. Leaders who only reward outcomes are going to kill creativity. And so what I try to do is I try to get out front and fail in front of my people. Leaders, stop acting like you have it all together in front of your people. Newsflash, they already know you don't know. They already know what you're bad at more than you do. You think you're good at some stuff, and your people know you're not. So let me just start there. But once you know that, then you can say, now that I know I don't have it all figured out, I'm not going to expect my people to figure it out, and I'm going to let them know, hey, I want you to be creative. I want you to go out there and mess it all up, and then we'll fix it. Don't kill the creativity of your team.
Currently, I'm reading, or well, it's my audiobook, I should say, right now, is The Culture Code. And it's a great book so far. And one of the individuals that kind of stands out to me, and it kind of ties into what we were talking about that they mention is great NBA coach Greg Popovich, right? He coached the San Antonio Spurs, and they tell a story about how they made it all the way to the final one year. They were looking great. And in the final game, they blew a lead. Like they should have won this game. It should have been in the bag. They absolutely blew the league. And they had ahead of time, they knew they should have won. They had reserved a room at this restaurant to celebrate and everything like that. And the book tells of Popovich and how when they lost, most coaches, not I don't want to stereotype coaches, but they get mad when they lose. They get mad when they blow a lead that much, and usually there is a decent amount of yelling ensuing. There's a lot of finger pointing, especially between teammates and things like that. But instead, he just said, "Hey, yeah, I'll see you guys at the restaurant. Yeah, I'll see you there. We better get there. We're going to be late." And he celebrated. He celebrated with the team. The team was down. The team knew that they failed. They knew and felt like they failed him. But instead of him, feeding into that, he showed so much celebration in something that was really a try, right? Because they lost the NBA national champion or the championship. But in that instance, he really took the opportunity to show what a great leader he was by celebrating even the attempt, celebrating that try. And that stood out to a lot of the players. And the book talks a little bit and gives a little bit tells a couple stories from a few of his players who just that moment stood out to them. Their entire career, they had great things happen, but that was one of the moments that stood out to them as one of their biggest and most memorable moments in their career.
Yeah, Scotty, are you reading that book because it's on the top 50? Did I recommend that book to you, or did you just pick it up?
No, you recommended the book to me. It's on the top 50. And I mean, you recommend a lot of books to me. But it was available via audiobook. I use the public library for audiobooks. And so they don't have everything, but it was there. And I said, heck, let's give this one a listen. And it's great. I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah, I got really excited when you said that you're reading that book, because I was like, as you know, I've talked to you about that book a lot. The Culture Code is probably one of my favorite books, even though it's not in the top 5. It's moving up and moving up because right here at Rising Tide Culture Consultants, we're all about helping people build better cultures. And that specific story about Popovich, or as his players call him, Pop, they would often say, Pop cares about me first as a person, and then he cares about me as a player.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody knows that Popovich, his leadership style, you're right, it's tough, but he knows how to balance toughness with care. And he's brutally honest. And sometimes he likes to yell from the sidelines, as we'd all seen while he was building that dynasty. Like they built something good.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
It definitely does. It definitely rivals that. And there's so many other stories, and he's such a main character kind of in the author's way to talk about culture. But there are examples of that, like throughout the book, of how he would pick up trash after games. When people clear out, he'd stay and he'd pick up trash. This multi-million-dollar paid head coach for an NBA team, and how when they were doing the warm-ups and things like that at practices, he would go around and talk to guys, just be like, "Hey, how's your family? How did so and so's play go? Hey, how was your weekend away with your wife? Oh, it's your anniversary, right? Happy anniversary!" And he just took that time to care and really celebrated. If we're talking about celebrating, like even the small things and not just the wins, he celebrated everything about every one of his players. And I think that's one of the key things that has made him such a resounding figure and a resounding coach.
Yeah, I remember also just one more thing about Popovich. He did care about the families, anniversaries. He knew kids' birthdays, and one of his former players said, "Those dinners made us family."
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, what a way to do it. So leaders, that's really the question for you is, are you being a leader like Popovich? Back to the main point that celebrating the tries, not just the wins. Popovich knew that in that moment, even though his pride was really hurt, he knew that it was more important to take care of his people, because people are more important than programs and process. And so I think is really a great lesson for all of us to be that kind of leader. Do you care? Are you nurturing your people?
I think so many leaders lose sight of that, right? Like that is just the key thing. People are what matters when it comes to leadership. And if you care about your people, right, then the success follows. It took a while for them to see success. Nick Saban didn't have immediate success. Bill Belichick, if we're talking about the sports world, or if we want to look at things like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, like none of those Chipotle, for heaven's sakes, like none of those places saw immediate success until they invested in people and stopped caring about the success, and then they saw that success. And I feel like so often so many leaders forget that it's just all about people. It is, at the end of the day, it's all about people. It's about how you care for them, and it's about how you treat them, how you know them, how you celebrate them in the ups and those downs. So yeah, man, what a great point. So Mo, do you have any final thoughts for us?
Just this, leaders, if you want fresh ideas, if you want innovation, if you want creativity, you've got to loosen your grip. Trust your people, give them space to experiment, to fail, to grow. Celebrate progress, not just perfection, because the messiness of innovation is actually where the best breakthroughs are born. Ask any chef, like my brother. When you come up with something new and it's incredible, it's usually because you probably messed something up and said, wow, this is great. So leaders, go out there, mess it all up. Let your people see you mess it up so they know it's okay to mess it all up, and then help them through that to create success through that progress.
And that's a great challenge. So for anybody who's listening to that and, is saying, man, I want to go deeper, I want to learn a bit more, don't forget and check out our book of the month. So you can look it up yourself, or you could subscribe to the newsletter and you will get it that way. So, but it is Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull. And it's a fascinating book about how Pixar became one of the most innovative companies in the world. Side note, it did stem from George Lucas, but we don't need to get into that. He's my homeboy, but, and it's full of lessons anyway that you can apply to your own leadership. So thanks everybody so much for listening today. We really appreciate you guys being here. And if you enjoyed the episode, just make sure you take a second to rate, review, and subscribe. It helps push us to the top of that algorithm so more people out there can find the show. Don't forget to head to rtclc.com, sign up for that monthly newsletter that I've been talking about so much. There you guys will get the book of the month. You'll get extra tips and insights that you guys won't find and or hear on the podcast. So until next time, lead with purpose, stay authentic, and make an impact.